Okay, Kaya everybody. Nichabal Mudic for being here. There have been many themes that have been talking about life from an Aboriginal perspective. We'll go over that in more detail. You may notice that when this was first advertised that I was sitting as a panel member and Libby was going to be the MC and I was going to be working and sharing information with Alison Scott. On our very first planning day, we realised that it needed to have the voice of women as panel members and to share in this all-important theme that we've come to and the topic of discussion today. So I just wanted to share that with you. And so, we're on Wajak Budja. We're going to have a welcome soon from our resident elder, from Nan Roma, which is all important, has been a process in this speakers series. And so we're going to hear from Alison and Libby a little bit later as the events gathers momentum. Just some housekeeping. So for those people who are here for the first time, then just outside are the bathrooms and bathroom facilities. And if you haven't already done so now, and I see some people on the phone, or I just caught you, please turn your phones on silent or off completely, be even better. In case there's an emergency, you never know, things happen in the world. Then staff members of the event will actually point out where the muster space is and we'll all gather there. And as this event is being live streamed, and welcome those people who are online, and this has been followed by people throughout Australia, which is really good. And if you do not wish your image or voice on screen, please notify ECU's events team. There will be a Q&A towards the end of the event where you and our people who are present, and those online will be able to address questions to our speakers. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are advised that today's event may contain the names of people who have passed away. We are delighted to welcome Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people from industry, our industry colleagues, community members, and ECU alumni students and staff to this event. And so without any further ado, we asked Nan Roma, whom I should be saying Roma because she's my sister, but it's just beautiful that ECU has a grandmother of high standing from our community, and that's the community of Australia as far as I'm concerned. Thanks, Roma.
Yaran Kaya. Thank you, Nguni. Yaran Kaya Nyunduk you all cool. Yaran Kaya Nyunduk nichi you all cool. Ngarlak nonuk jinang yay. Jurup nonuk jinang yay. Yaran Kaya Nunga bujayak. Yaran Kaya Wajak nunga bujayak. Ngarlak nunuk jinang yay. Jurup nunuk jinang yay. Yaran Kaya Jurup nunuk jinang yay. Welcome everyone. I'm just saying it's actually a pleasure to be here and share this space with everybody else as we all come together with light mind of a better future for everybody. And I'll stop at that so that my brother can take over now. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much, Roma. So we're celebrating 50 years of NAIDOC. NAIDOC's always been about awareness and the celebration of Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people, our history, our culture and our achievements. There's been many. There have been many leaders and that we've acknowledged over the years. There have been many themes of NAIDOC, and in this year it's about our next generation. And so we're proud. It's a proud moment for ECU as we celebrate 20 years of Kurongkurl Katitjin. And without the centre, we wouldn't have an Aboriginal terms of reference. Without people who've been throughout the centre over the years, then there would be something lacking. And so it's been a real brilliant social movement in the world of academia to have such a place as Kurongkurl Katitjin. And still continues to be a guiding light as far as Aboriginal terms of reference is concerned at ECU. This is the fourth event of ECU's NAIDOC Speaker Series, and the series aims to foster respect, truth-telling and self-determination by embracing this year's NAIDOC theme, the next generation, strength, vision and legacy. It is also guided by ECU's newly released cultural narrative framework, unique in Australian universities as a framework and strategy to ensure Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander values, ways of thinking about the world and pedagogies are embedded at the heart of all we do at ECU. Life layer narratives are foundational to the cultural narrative framework. They are gifts from Whadjuk Noongar elders who participated in the curation of the framework, and each one represents a unique aspect of Noongar knowledge system and worldview. Jindawala, which is stars, Mort Budja, ecosystems, and that theme is with us today. We have people within our ecosystems. We have a social atmosphere within our society. Kart, hills, Kep, all important water. And it's appropriate to go over Nada, subterranean. It's appropriate to go over those themes and in more detail. In recognition of this year's NAIDOC theme and the university's new cultural and native framework, ECU NAIDOC Speaker Series is guided by these 5 life layers. At the first event, we explored Nada, subterranean life levels, with cultural leaders Dr. Richard Wally and ECU's Clotilde Bullen, OAM. I did actually have a listen to that, and it was quite brilliant actually. At the second event, turned to Kep, water life layers with lawyer Ningala Yaron Mark and her daughter Tiara Clanton. That was also brilliant, and Tiara, who is the Principal of Approvals Planning at Fortescue. And at the third event, we explored Carter, the Hills Layers of Life, with Joanne Hill, Managing Director of Marak Holdings and Project Officer within ECU's School of Arts and Humanities, and Renee Isaac Guthridge, an academic at ECU's Kurongkurl Katitjin, Wadandi Yorga. Today's event will be framed through the lens of Mort Budja, the ecosystem life layer. We will explore how collaborative relationships and cross-disciplinary partnerships can improve the lives of people impacted by family and domestic violence. We acknowledge that today's event will discuss topics which may be distressing or may be triggering points for attendees and those listening online. Take care of yourself. Take time out if you need to, it's all understanding. We recognise that family and domestic violence affects people from all walks of life, and that some individuals here today may be experiencing it or may have experienced it in the past. We also acknowledge that there may be people in our lives who are impacted by FDV, even if we're not aware of it. Please take care of yourself during this event. If you need to step away, as I said, then please do so. And take time out if you're listening from afar. And we welcome those people who are online. Without further ado, it's time to actually share who are our panellists. A little bit more about our panellists. So Alison Scott, a Noongar woman from Bulu, Perth, and with strong connections to the Great Southern of Western Australia, a large family on the Hayward side actually. Thought I'd mention that. She is a passionate advocate of, and the Jackson side. She's a passionate advocate of Aboriginal empowerment for improving the lives of those affected by family, domestic and sexual violence. Drawing on both personal and professional experiences, Alison educates communities and champions system change, which is all good for our future and now. In recognition of her leadership and advocacy, Alison was inducted into the West Australian Women's Hall of Fame in March 2025 and was also awarded Honorary Fellow at Murdoch University in 24. Alison has more than 25 years' experience in human sector services, including over a decade in senior leadership roles with West Australian State Government. In 2023, Alison founded Quabup Consultancy, a business dedicated to projects that centre on Aboriginal voices, enhance family and community safety, promotes healing and improve outcomes across all areas of wellbeing. Alison serves as co-chair of the National Domestic, Family and Sexual Violence Lived Experience Council and is a member of the Domestic, Sexual and Family Violence Sector Strengthening Plan Working Group. So it's good that Alison is here today with us, obviously working in those fields and being on the pulse of something that needs to change. It's always present in our society. Dr. Libby Jackson-Barrett is ECU's Associate Dean, Senior Indigenous Researcher, Lecturer of Kurongkurl, Katitjin, and the School of Education. Libby is a Whadjuk Yorga, born in North Fremantle. Her nana, Mary Daisy Jackson, my apologies, Libby, was born on Women's Birthing Place on the Jalgaro, Bilya, Canning River. An interdisciplinary scholar, Libby's research and teaching focuses on exploring the factors that promote students' deep understanding of country and culture that goes with that. Her work extends to promoting teachers' understanding and utilising of country in their pedagogical practice. Central to Libby's scholarly work is her commitment to exploring and developing factors that foster successful educational outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students and students from all walks of life for that matter. She specialises in culturally relevant and critical pedagogy, implementing culturally responsive teaching practices and working alongside Aboriginal communities in rural and remote regions of Western Australia on Indigenous education initiatives. Libby bridges academic research with practical applications, working to transfer educational experiences and outcomes for Indigenous students across all levels of learning. It's really good that those people are with us today. Okay, and without further ado, I'm going to join the panel as MC. Okay,
what we'd like to start with is actually a little bit more about yourself. And so, Libby, would you like to go first? Looking by surprise.
Yeah, you did. I was just saying to Alison, I think I got a big head now after that introduction. But more than an academic, so who am I? I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I've got 8 grannies, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a number of things. I think, you know, I live in an intergenerational family. Like I have my own children, but I have 3 grandchildren that have been living with me for the last 5.5 years. So I see lots of aspects. You know, I'm an Indigenous woman. My father is a Wodjala, so he's a non-Indigenous man, but his mother was was a teacher, the first teacher at Kurongkurl. So that sort of inspired me to education. But also too, I had an education on country because as a family, we holidayed together. We did a whole number of things growing up, and to this day we pass on through family stories. So I don't think I'm complex, but I'm a very busy person. So that is me in a nutshell. And interesting that we're talking about family because we are all interconnected with the same ancestor. So that's exciting.
And Libby, you come from a family who were in the era when wharfies were wharfies, and you've seen Fremantle grow and Perth for that matter as well.
Yes, I was born in North Fremantle. My nana was born on Jelgabelia, so part of the Welshpool Reserve. Her mother was from Israelite Bay but was taken to New Norcia. But when my grandmother's father joined the war, the family moved to Fremantle, so we've had a long history. My nana didn't go to school till she was 9, and my mother was schooled in Fremantle, and she's lived in Fremantle her whole life. So everyone sort of worked on the wharf, and that's how we're sort of all interconnected.
Thank you very much. Good for everyone to hear that. So, Alison, you come from a proud family line, and but your work is just extremely full of sensitivity. There's power in that because you've been part of working with a team of people, and you're only good as the people you work with, but you're making a difference in a space that's required. But a little bit more about yourself, thanks.
Yeah, I grew up in Perth, Boorloo, in Belmont. My family were the place that everyone came. Mum was always looking after kids. All the cousins were always there. Aunties lived with, I think every auntie that I've got on has lived with us at some point with her children. So there was always family in the house. I never really understood why they were there. I didn't really care, to be honest. It was, they were just there, that was family. But as I got older, I did realise there was lots of family violence and reasons for them needing refuge at our place. And Mum and Dad's house was very safe all the time. You don't bring any of that, no matter who you are, whether you're family, friends, someone just rocks up the door. Mum's a very powerful woman. No one's going to mess with my mum, nor my grandmother or my great-grandmother. I have a long line of very powerful women. So I had a great childhood growing up. It was filled with lots of love and people coming together. I was talking to Nan Roma about how we'd go down to the river and my 2 grandmothers and all their kids, all my aunties and uncles and their kids. And it wasn't until later on that I realised that, most families don't have, 40 people to play British Bulldog plus spectators, and had the best times down, fishing and just playing. So it was a really great childhood. I did unfortunately go on to experience family violence in my first relationship with the father of my 2 boys. And I speak about that because I think people often think, they grew up with it, then they do it, and it's passed on that way. One of the things I have worked in the Ombudsman's office in the family violence fatalities review area, and we used to watch media all the time. And if you ever watch media for homicides, for DV homicides, you will often see the women are described as very caring, very loving, very patient, very kind. And they're all the qualities that I have and I think make us very vulnerable as women as well. They're beautiful qualities, but they also make us at risk. So my first relationship, when I was pregnant, I experienced family violence. And 6 years ago, my sister was murdered by her husband. So that was when I really decided enough is enough, and I'm going to be more active in this space and not let anything hold me back. I do want to reiterate what Pop said about self-care. I'm never offended or put out by someone stepping out. I really encourage self-care in this space, and I applaud anyone that does do that. So please, if you are triggered in any way, please look after yourself during this.
Thanks very much for that. Your family have obviously been supportive, and you've just shared with our audience and those online, all of us for that matter, that journey. How does family and culture in your life and your family, how's that been supportive in your journey of healing?
Yeah, I honestly don't think I could have got out of it if I had my family. I was into family violence relationships, and both times my family have been integral to me being able to leave. The first time my oldest son was weeks old and my house was destroyed, and I needed to get out of Perth within 24 hours. I was on a bus. Mum organised a bus to send me to Karratha, which is a 24-hour bus ride with weeks-old baby. I didn't feel like I was putting out my cousin, who lived up there with her father-in-law and partner, and they had a small child. It was, you need to go be with family. They knew I was safe. I felt safe, and I could stay up there for as long as I needed to. Other times I've been working in Darwin and been at risk and known that my life was at risk. My dad flew up to me within 24 hours. My mum was organising everything from home, and was there caring for I had to take my children out of school, had to speak to work, all those different things, go home to Canberra, pack up my house, move across. My family were there, all supporting me for that, living with family at different times, crying to them. I remember one time I was sitting there going, I'm so depressed. I'm on antidepressants and I've got a dog and even my dog's depressed and needs to go on antidepressants. I was talking to my mum and just felt so lucky that I could have those conversations openly about how I was feeling. And I've worked in the space for a long time and I know that lots of our people don't have that in their families. They don't have... they do have people they can go to, but they're not necessarily people that can hold them, that can create safety for them, that can create boundaries, that can support them financially. And my family don't have a lot of money, but if I need a plane ticket, if I need a bus ticket, if I need somewhere to stay, if I need food, we've got all that. Non-Aboriginal people, I think, huge loss. Not having our family relationships because they are so isolated. They are very small families and they're not as protective, I don't think. So I really do credit my family for getting out of that, and it was the strength of our culture. It was just the love. It's just who we are. It was not questioned. The strength of us as women and mothers and sisters was really what got me through and still does today.
Okay, thanks for that. So Lib, I noticed you were acknowledging some of the things that were said there, shared. So family is all important, huge support when things like this is happening.
I agree. I think back over my life and
Mike.
And I remember one time in a really bad marriage, and my brothers just rolled up with a truck and said, "You're moving. We are not putting up with this." I don't argue with my brothers. There's 6 of them. Yeah. Do you know there were? So without that, I think about the times that I've seen, because we are an intergenerational family, because we all holidayed together. We were always at my nana's place. And if we weren't there, there was some other family, all the cousins, same thing. I think what that instilled in me is resilience. So I can actually help my own children with whatever they experience. I see their strength. So I understand that has been passed on. I think that's something that we actually have as Indigenous families, that we nurture and we care and we make space, and that's just what we do.
Okay,
Can I just share a quick story? A friend, when I was had my daughter and was going to a mother's group, and I actually had to have a conversation with her and going, "Do you realise you're in a family violence situation?" And she ended up having to leave. It was escalating, and all her family lived in over east. And the police were giving her 20 minutes to get everything out of her house, because that's what you do when you have a violence restraining order. You get a whole 20 minutes to get all of your belongings and your children's stuff out. And she's like, "What am I going to do? I've got nothing. I've got no one." My mum, my dad, my 3 boys, my stepson and my 2 sons, my auntie, and a couple of other family members were there with multiple cars and trailers to get this woman. She's not Aboriginal. to support her and to get what she needs and get out of the house and make her feel safe, because the person that was using violence against her was standing across the road, eyeballing her the whole time. And she honestly, to this day, doesn't know how she would have got out of that. But I think that's the beauty of our culture too. It doesn't matter if you're blood. Our family are there and will support. And many of the people that I consider family now are not blood, but they have stood up for me and supported me. And one of the people that is here is Jane. And they're there when you need them, and that's what family is to me, and I see that in all of our communities.
Okay. So, wow. Impacting already. So we know, both Ali and Libby, we know that our communities are disproportionately affected by domestic and family violence because of ongoing impacts of invasion and colonisation. And, there's intergenerational trauma. We have some slides on the screen where people can see, and they're about stats. Are you able to share some insights into what this looks like within the community and how it's being addressed? Because those stats are alarming.
Yeah, I don't think people necessarily realise that WA is one of the worst performing states in Australia. And we are doing worse and worse. We are not getting better. We have the worst out-of-home care rates for the nation. I think people often think that's the Northern Territory or some other state. We have by far the worst. And you can see on the bottom table, it's increasing, 90% increase in 10 years. Most of those kids are in there because of family violence. We have not had the services that we need. We are grossly overrepresented in prisons, in hospitalisations, 25% increase, 25% of hospitalisations for Aboriginal women due to family violence is higher. We haven't had an opportunity to get the support that we need, and we still don't today. We are actually talking about that now, and things like the Lived Experience Advisory Group, where we do have an Aboriginal person as the co-chair with the Commissioner, is an opportunity, but it's a very slow step, and it's a hard gig. There are things like Closing the Gap, but we all know that they're not meeting their targets and they're actually doing quite poorly in that area. I am on the Domestic Violence Sector Strengthening Working Group for that, and Aboriginal people really do have a voice in that. I'm there as an independent member. There's only 2 WA people, but we are forcing our way in there. No one's opening doors for us. We're constantly forcing our way in there to lead in our own area, but I actually think that's a disservice, because every time I co-design a project or speak to community about what works for Aboriginal people, they want the same thing. What works for us works for everyone else almost all of the time. So don't just put it in the 4% or, in those areas where we're performing terribly. Our ways work for everyone, and Australia has not recognised that as a strength that we have to offer. And until we do, I don't think we're going to see much improvement, because it can't just be funding an ACO or having a little program in child protection or Department of Health or whatever it is, or having an Aboriginal person as a co-chair. We have to be committed to doing better in that space, and everyone on board and everyone seeing it as their responsibility.
Okay. With the applause. So, Libby.
I think you've just touched on it. It's everyone's responsibility, and I think it's extremely hard because people don't have the courage. I think sometimes we need to step to the space where we take the courage to have those conversations. I didn't come from a family that was embedded in domestic violence at all. So I wondered in my first marriage, is this how it is? Well, actually, no, it isn't. Do you know? So it's about extending the hand and being kind. I think we've lost a lot of what, that kindness of what society needs to do to help others. You know, we're not, without judgment, without, you know, just having those kind conversations. You said the other day that you sat next to somebody because you were at an event and you could see clearly that something was going on. But that's what I mean. It's just taking the time out to have a yarn to see that somebody is okay, because that's the starting point. And I do believe that when you're in this situation, is that in your mind, you've left quite a few years prior to you physically leaving a relationship, because you're getting your ducks in a row, you're working out how you're going to get an income, what sort of a car, where you're going to live, you know, and given today's residential void of access to housing, it's extremely difficult to people to leave a relationship, particularly if you're not in the space where you're economically able to afford to be able to move. It's extremely debilitating. So I think, you know, we're taking care of, and we think our kids don't know. Well, they got ears. You know, they hear lots that you think that they actually don't hear. And that's the cycle that we actually need to be breaking, isn't it?
Okay, leads into the next question. Too many children are now rightly recognised as victims. How has violence, your family experience, impacted your children, Ali? And what are some of the issues facing our kids today?
So my boys grew up in family violence. They're 25 and 26 now, and they are beautiful, kind, gentle men. They are very big and probably don't look kind and gentle, but they are safe men, and that was always a priority for me, is that you do not touch women. Violence is not the way. You protect those that are vulnerable, whether they're women, children, the kids at school, whoever. So that was a huge message that growing up that I told my boys. They have, and till this day, struggle with what they have seen and felt and experienced. And like most men, they probably don't talk about it a lot. I think as you have your own children and then see my 26-year-old has 2 boys, married with 2 kids, 3 and 5, and he's the most beautiful father, and I think that's my biggest hope, is that they would not go on to be that, and through the people that I surrounded my children with, that was always top priority. But we don't have services for kids. We didn't then. People talk about counselling. Counselling, I think, has had a very limited impact for me personally and for my children, very limited. My daughter, who's 11, she was 5 when her second mum was murdered, and she's only just got counselling more recently because it's a journey and different things come up at different times. There's lots of complexities around getting services to our kids. They're not culturally safe. They're not designed from our strengths. They don't recognise that family is so important. They're very individualised, and that's not how we work as a community. Kids don't have a lot of rights, sadly. Even if a child wants to have access to counselling, they have to get permission from their parents. So even for my daughter to get access to counselling, the counsellor had to have permission from me and her father. And that wasn't an issue with for me or my daughter. But it's ridiculous that you would need the person using violence against family to grant access to them getting support. That's the same with legal services. The parents have to give permission for the children to have access to, a children's lawyer. So there's all those complexities around it. It is more talked about now, but we have a long way to go. And if we're going to stop this from being the issue that it is intergenerationally, and break the cycle, then we've got a lot of work to do in that space.
Thanks for that. So Libby, you've shared experience where you had family support, but obviously your children would have been affected at the same time.
Yes, Ken, I think, you know, they were affected in different ways, but I also want to come back to the men, like my brothers, my father, my uncles, who stepped into the space for them to actually show them what good men do. And I don't think we say that enough. I think you just said that in what you were saying as well, Alison, you know. And I think, you know, it's a difficult space for children. I think about the 3 grandkids that came to me on 8:30 on a Thursday night when DCP and the police knocked on the door and said, would you take these 3 kids, or we're putting them in foster care? And I'm like, what? I'm just vacuuming my house. Like, what's going on here? And you don't realise what's been going on. Of course you're going to step in as a grandparent. I found it absolutely, dealing with DCP was, I've never dealt with DCP, so there's this assumption that I know how it rolls. Well, actually I don't. And it's absolutely very difficult to navigate an institution that thinks so deficitly of Aboriginal peoples. So, you know, you need to be mindful of all these things. If I hadn't have had the grandparents line, I most certainly would not have been able to navigate half the thing on MyGov, access to childcare. My kids were well in their 30s, so I had no idea how to access that. If you don't know, then how do you deal with that? And that's extremely difficult. It's deliberating, really. So I've learnt lots in the last 5.5 years, not from the parenting side of things, but how to navigate an institution.
Can I just add that
do.
I've got a daughter, and the way I parent her is very different to how I parented my boys. I am all about you protect yourself, you use your voice unapologetically. You know, you stand up for what's right. I don't care if teachers say that that's not okay, that I will stand by you, and I surround her with lots of strong women so that she can see that, because we have so many pressures on us, and we are at such high risk of being murdered and of being treated badly by all different people in our community. We are so vulnerable, and that has been a real eye-opener for me of my differencing in parenting a young girl, and also someone that I think is a proud Aboriginal young woman. And I can see her doing amazing things, and I see it as a huge responsibility to build her up so that she can cope with that, because it's not a nice space to be in. I don't, you know, get any joy from coming along and speaking about all the, you know, deaths and homicides and hospitalisations and sexual abuse and all that, but it's needed, and we need to get on with the hard work. So we need to be able to teach our children, girls and boys, about how to cope in that space too, because it's hard when you're in it, and it's hard coming out of it for a very long time as well.
I think schooling plays a factor in that, Alison. Do you know, where you send your kids to school, you know, the pastoral care and the outer community of school is vital. Do you know? I think that's been a great help in the 3 kids that I've got with me. 2 of them have gone back now to their mum. But without that support of schools and the pastoral care at the high school, then that would have been extremely difficult, I think.
Okay, we're getting into, there's reference to systems there as well. And here at ECU, we're into decolonisation, aren't we? led by a lot of learned people who realise that we need to do that as far as the inclusion of Aboriginal people are concerned within those systems, and to be fairly represented. Sometimes the systems get in the way. So, Libby, we know that decolonising systems is important for improving outcomes for our communities. What challenges have you experienced working in this space? And how do you think tertiary institutions can better support this work?
I'll be kind here. I think there's a Noongar word and it's called dwonkabert, deaf ears, right? And I think of the conversations that I've had over 25 years, and I see that people think they're listening, but they're listening to respond. They're not listening to actually learn the space. So I think, back to what Richard Wally talks about, learning to do rather than, because as Aboriginal people we do to learn. We've been in this country, I was talking to Alison before, for 65,000 years. It's nonsensical to think there was not an education system here or knowledge systems, right? So, and we know that because we're still here, we've survived. So people need to actually listen and hear what we're actually saying so that we can actually change it up. I think from an institution perspective, I hear the word courage of our values, and we actually need to take the courage to change the system. I think that is true decolonising of what we can actually do in this space. It has been challenged. I mean, it's changed, but we're still having the same conversations. I think about my conversations in 25 years, and it's the same conversations. We're in 2025, folks. It's time.
Okay, thanks, Libby. Ali, national groups that you work on to make a difference in this space. Can you add a little bit more about the need to decolonise certain things within the system that those groups would be faced with?
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking about the sector strengthening group, and I hope that it's okay that I share this because it's not really public knowledge, but they were talking about who is the sector, and we're talking about services and government, ACOs, NGOs, all that kind of thing, and I do not see the domestic violence area as just that. In our communities, it's our aunties, it's our nans, it's our sisters that are holding us up and doing that work and opening those front doors when we're at risk. It is the brothers and the fathers and the pops that are there standing by us, protecting us. So when we talk about, what government or what the Western world thinks of a sector, it's all about funded services. If we are going to change this space, there's a lot of people doing a whole lot of work that is unpaid, that is saving a whole lot more lives than funded services. So I think that's part of the decolonising of don't just think about that. So we've changed, what does this look like? So we now have natural helpers, our aunties, our grandparents. How do we support these people? Because they are spending a whole lot of money out of their own pocket. They are stressed beyond belief. We know grandparents are looking after so many grandchildren, because there's not enough people to care for our children, and we don't want them going into homes where they don't have any connection. So those kinds of things. I think also another project I'm working on, which is the systemic reform in the domestic violence space for WA government, is developing an Aboriginal family violence risk assessment tool. We never went into it thinking like that. We've renamed it Strong Heart, Strong Home, and have based that around yarning, relational approach, and about strengths-based. There's a lot of things that people do all the time to keep themselves safe. So turning that around rather than going a checklist of all the horrible things that have you experienced to see if you are at risk of homicide. How do we actually keep these people strong and healthy and moving towards improving their well-being? And that is a whole new kind of thought process, and I'm constantly challenging that. You know, what is the evidence that your way is working? Because there's very few people that the common risk assessment for family violence, the screening tool, is effective, and it's incredibly triggering for people that are experiencing violence. So it's constantly having those conversations at high level to keep them accountable. And go, well, this is what we've done for 65,000 years. We don't work from all the stuff that doesn't work from us. That's just going to keep you in a hole. What are you doing? And again, going back to, you know, if you've got no food for your family because he's taken your key card, how are you feeding your kids? You know, do you go to Arnie's house for dinner and she helps make lunches for the kids for school and things like that? So it's having all those conversations at high levels where they really don't get this stuff. And we really need to wake them up to that and go, we've got all this stuff to learn. And from that family violence risk assessment tool, which there is not an Aboriginal tool in Australia for screening for family violence, even though 20% of the homicides are Aboriginal people in our country. 4% about the population, but 20% of the homicides. So we're developing the first one, and it is an uphill battle trying to get people, government, to come on board with that. However, non-Aboriginal people really love it too. Lots of people that work in the space and people experiencing violence of all different backgrounds want this too. So what works, again, for us, works for everyone else, where we've got so much to contribute.
Can I just add then?
Please do.
Thanks. From a tertiary perspective then, that's our response. That's on us. That's a responsibility that I see of our graduates, to be culturally responsive, to know how to work alongside Aboriginal women, men, children, communities and businesses. So I think that's where the space opens up, and I think as we move into the city space as well, I think the alumni of ECU has the opportunity to bring people back in, and we're creating a different ecosystem in terms of based on Indigenous family, but back to our alumni. So I think that's the beauty of having these sort of yarns, but also having progressive and progressing into the city. I see this is the change. We are change makers, really, and I think we actually need to kick the door open rather than waiting for it to be opened.
My minor is in family and children's studies, and I remember, going through the course, and they'd just make flippant remarks of Aboriginal kids have got such great gross motor skills. We don't need to teach them anything about that. It's, they do so well. They're good at climbing and jumping, and they're not scared. They'll give it a go. Could I find it in any textbooks how they learn from us about how do we get these non-Aboriginal kids that struggle to, jump and kick and bounce a ball and all that kind of stuff? That's not in the textbooks. They'd make the flippant remark, but it's not reflected in our education systems of, okay, they're doing fantastic in that. It's always deficit approach.
Okay, no doubt there's a few questions that are coming to mind from our audience. And Alison, when someone, and Libby as well, when someone is experiencing family violence, it can be hard to know how to help. Sometimes you might hear a scream, Anna, next door neighbour. You go, well, they're just arguing again. And sometimes we don't make it our business. Sadly, someone may die. So what kind of support made a difference for you? And are there things people should or shouldn't do?
I always remember, I can still see it in my face, when I was out the front of my house and I was being assaulted and a family walked past and didn't even look at me. I will remember that till the day I die. I think that hugely has an impact on people experiencing violence, and it says community don't care. I think there's lots of things people can do, and it starts from just caring and listening, just having that conversation and going at their pace. Recognise that people who are experiencing violence are managing their safety every minute of every day. They're not this empty vessel that you need to say, this is what you do to get out of it. Absolutely research and, find out what services are available, or, if they haven't got food for their kids, help them out. If they need a transport to an appointment, help them out. But don't come in there like you're the expert and you're going to fix this. You have to be very careful in this space, but don't be scared of that. Don't make that turn you away from doing something. Just sit with the person and hold space and allow them to tell you what they want to tell you, and support them in the ways that they need support. I didn't leave straight away. Many people don't. It's like 7 to 8 times of trying to leave before someone actually does. And that's because they're mitigating a whole lot of risks, like Arnie said before, housing, employment, car, all those kinds of things that actually mean you can leave and be able to provide for your children, keep your children with you so that child protection don't take them. Be patient and don't fall into, thinking that someone's doing something wrong because that's not the way you would do it. The person that is experiencing violence knows the most about the situation, and they are risk managing constantly. So trust in them that they are doing all that they can at that time.
Thanks for that. Sometimes women may well be thinking, oh, it's going to stop, I'll stay that little bit longer, we have kids, he's the love of my life, but then there's this horrible violence, so no doubt.
And you can't save anyone. I think that's my biggest lesson, is that I can't love someone to help themselves. They've got to make the choice, they've got to do the work. And I, try to support partners to get the help that they need, but unless they want that, then nothing's going to change. So I think really letting people know, you hear so many bad messages about yourself and about how you can't leave, and all the bad things that are going to happen if you do leave and you're nothing. So building their confidence up to let them know that that is not true. That you do have options and that you are a smart, brave, powerful person does a hell of a lot. I often talk as well about men have such an important role to play in this space. Don't turn a blind eye to bad behaviour, to bad comments, to, a man controlling his wife or partner or girlfriend, which we see in young people a lot, from very young ages, controlling their girlfriends, where they can go, who they can speak to, what they can spend money on, how they can dress. Start calling people out in that, because a man that doesn't respect women is not going to listen to his partner or other women saying stuff, but he might listen to his mate, his dad, his uncle, his brother, his colleague, whoever it is, and keep on doing that. But I don't think that having a go at them is always effective as well. Hold them accountable, but encourage them to get support to deal with their shit too. In our community, we know that this stuff comes from a whole lot of trauma and a whole lot of pain. So, they've had awful things happen to them, and I know that from my previous partners and why I stayed longer, because I saw why. But we need to support people to reach out and get help. And the help might not be, the men's helpline number. It might be talking to uncle, uncle checking in once a week. How are you going with this, that or the other? What can I do to support your family? Dropping in, not just letting them isolate women and children in the home and watching what's happening all the time, rather than just coming around for a barbecue and watch the footy or something. Actually pay attention.
Okay, very good. So Lib, we do understand that there's an entrapment people don't want it to, women don't want it to be happening, and yet it does. What do you think about what's just been shared? Because that was really brilliant.
I'm just thinking, you know, somebody asked me yesterday, what is coercive control? That's not part of a family violence restraining order, you know, and I looked it up. I thought, right, I'm going to have a look at this. So I pulled it up. It is in WA. It's not a law that's foreign, but coercive control, you see it on the television. What is it? But what are we doing about it? Do you know, when you've got children that go to another parent for a weekend and they come back despondent, I don't want to live with you, and all these negativities that come, you're bombarded with 2,000 messages, you know, all this it's all in the act. Do you know, we actually have to inform ourselves. I didn't know any of this, and I'm thinking, okay, what does it actually look like? And I think that's the thing, you know, you ask what can we do? It's about saying, can I help you? Do you need help? Do you know, throwing the question out there and just being kind, taking that moment just to ask, can I help you in any way? What do you need? Yeah.
And not just for that 5 minutes,
No,
you know, like
no.
it being open-ended and checking in
Yeah.
regularly.
On a continual basis, because it builds that space of what you were talking about, the resilience, and also that this is not my fault this is happening, but I'm in this situation. So I think that's the thing that we actually need to stand up, all of us, whether male or female, you know. So, yeah.
Okay, so this has been quite awesome, actually. Sensitive, deeply sensitive at the same time. And, you know, before we go to audience questions, you'll see a list of family and domestic violence helpline and support services displayed on the screen behind us, in front of you, if you're online. We encourage anyone who may need support to reach out. While this list is not exhaustive, it offers a starting point for accessing help. We would also like to highlight a few additional services and initiatives. We referred, I think Alison referred to her pet earlier. So RSPCA's WA Pets in Crisis program provides temporary care for pets of individuals escaping domestic violence. DV Safe Phone accepts donations of old phones which are repurposed to help victims of domestic violence stay connected and safe. Metal Women is a non-profit social enterprise that employs, trains and financially empowers those who experience homelessness as a result of domestic and family violence. 16 days of WA is coming up from 25th November to the 10th of December. Visit the WA government page for more information and ways to get involved. So, providing we're on time, you may have noticed I don't wear a watch because I'm stuck on Nyungar time. It has been a while. But no doubt there will be questions from the audience. And so, question already. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Ken. We have a question from an online audience member. Alison, is for you. I have a question based on the statistics we shared earlier. The barriers to reporting, why is it that only 36% is taken seriously by the government? And what are the barriers for government to take this seriously?
I'm trying to find a politically correct answer, which is rare for me, by the way. Government need to do a whole lot better. And if I was in charge of that government, I would be changing that right now, because that's about the workers that they have, about their attitudes to people with experiencing family violence. Police work is largely domestic and family violence. If you don't want to deal with that, I'd say get out of the police force. Don't turn up with a poor attitude. It took me 3 attempts to get a police officer to take my statement when I was abused. lost my house with it, had to move, and was told that it was a waste of their time, they had other stuff to do, and I've supported many women doing that as well. It's an attitude issue and it's also an education issue, and I think what government needs to do is to get more specialists involved in these areas, rather than thinking that police can train police about family violence, or Department of Communities can internally train their staff about family violence or health or whatever it is. This is a specialised area, and we need to get real about it. I actually co-led the crisis talks for family violence reform in WA with the Centre for Women's Safety and Wellbeing. We need to hold them accountable to reform, not fluffing around the edges, but actually reform, because they aren't doing well. And for most people to not recognise that WA has the worst rates of out-of-home care for Aboriginal children in the whole entire country, they should all be appalled by that, and we should be holding them accountable to doing a whole lot better. So there is no good reason for it, and it can change.
Okay, got a view on that, Lib? Got a view on that, Lib? Thank you.
And look, I wholeheartedly agree. And this is the attitude that came with Terra Nullius, and it's that mindset that Aboriginal people don't matter. And you know what? We do. And until we actually kick the door open and we change the view on this, and we be culturally teach cultural responsiveness and relationality in our work, then things are not going to change. So, and I can give you an example of somebody ringing the police. They have a family violence restraining order, and this sergeant is just absolutely appalling. Like, how can that be? What are you going to wait till she's in hospital or dead? Or, like, come on. I mean, they're issued for a reason. So I think that attitude of the police, another one, you're being hysterical. No, I'm just responding to the 2,000 messages that I've had in the last 2 months. Step up is what I say.
And I think it was like what we talked about before about honest conversations.
Yes.
You have to be honest and you have to be brave. Actually,
Courage.
we've got the data there. You've got no reason for not acting on this. So let's get on with doing the work in that space.
Courage.
I think also a huge lack of understanding about family violence. People getting annoyed with victims because they went back. They don't understand the complexity of it and the struggles with that, and that they have had to make those choices. Not that they wanted to. There was no other options. There was no other safe options. So, educate your police on why this does happen and how much a difference. Like when I did eventually make that statement, and the police officer was horrible. But there was one behind me that he noticed he was being horrible, and when he went out to get the printing or something, he came up and had a quiet word with me and gave me a few pamphlets to support me. And that sticks with me to this day. He didn't have to do that, and he didn't speak up as much as probably I would, but he did do something. So, those small things you might think are just tiny little things, but, this is over 15 years ago, and I still remember that kind moment.
So it's about leadership. If you're in a position of leadership, that's where you actually need to step up. Because the pamphlet man probably was a subordinate.
Yes. Yep.
So, and people find that hard to... And you're not speaking back, you're just doing your job from a different way because you've got a different understanding.
Okay, so there's bound to be questions because there's been a lot of information shared, and even there was the point that we know that many women have suffered the consequence of domestic violence of all walks of life. It was referred to the police, and it's part of their role to come to people's aids, and then you have the cultural ignorance, if you like, sometimes, or a stereotypical viewpoint of, it's just Aboriginal people, and you have two Aboriginal women who are sharing with you that gets in the way as well, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not our culture, it's not our way.
Okay, So, question, thank you.
You were speaking before about financial services and people only going to NGOs or ACOs or whatever. And I know in recent years some things have changed for women who now can access cards through Commonwealth Bank or whatever, where they don't have to tell their partner, and you know, all that. Things are changing, but so much in like my family's experience with these issues is around women not being able to leave because they don't have access to money because either the partner's controlling it or they just don't have money for a variety of reasons. I know some of that's changed, but do you know or can you share about some of the other things that need to change or that have already changed so that women can better, that at least that barrier's removed?
Yeah, I think there are things like the domestic violence leaving payment, I think it's called, which is a federal one. There's still lots of issues around how things are delivered. For instance, that's only for intimate partners, whereas we know there's a lot of family violence which excludes, and there's lots of criteria, so we really need to make sure that it's actually accessible. There are different supports through refuges and supports for small payments. Unfortunately, that's still a huge barrier, and getting, Centrelink payments are really not enough to even pay your rent. So how do people actually do that realistically? The housing crisis is a huge issue with that. So there is bits of funding available, but it's really ad hoc. It might be helping pay a bill or buy a fridge, or maybe pay your, what do you call when you move into a house, that kind of, your bond, that kind of stuff. But my own experience when I was homeless and, that it's incredibly expensive to be homeless. You can't fill up your fridge and your cupboard and have food there. And I think people just think, oh, well, you've got your whatever payment, that should cover it. But we are really keeping people in poverty and in family violence because there are no good options. And yeah, it's very ad hoc and it's very small amounts. It's not enough to actually, like even that $5,000, if you're having to leave and you've got nothing, what's $5,000 going to do? And I think some of it you have to go towards rent or something, so it's already decided where some money's going. But yeah, that's definitely a huge issue.
Okay, thanks. So in the middle of the room, we have another question. Thank you.
Firstly, I would like to say I have my biological sister who's also had that kind of situation. I've also been the auntie that the young boy will go to for food. And I also have my sister of the heart who's currently going through a similar situation. So my condolences for your own sister. But my question would be, how would you recommend building a home that will be that safe space for people who are able to escape?
I think we need to educate people on how to actually do that, because people don't actually know. Like that lady that I was talking about that we helped leave, she went to a refuge and I said, oh, have you got a safety plan? She said, no, they haven't done it with me. So the refuge hadn't done that with her. And I said, okay, I'm coming with you right now to develop that plan. And she said, okay, well, I'll meet you at such and such coffee shop, which is the coffee shop she always goes to. I went, you can't go there. He knows there. He's hanging around there, which was not far from where she used to live. So escaping family violence actually means turning your whole life upside down. You have to pick up everything and go somewhere else and change your routine. You have to be very mindful who you're around. I remember when I was leaving and I would not get on a train because Noongars are all on trains. And people don't do it with, malice necessarily, but they might say, oh, I saw Alison at Oak Street train station with the 2 boys at, such and such time. And then they know. My boy's first day of high school, I had his auntie and his cousin ringing me up saying, oh, I saw them on the train. You've got to become kind of invisible to keep yourself safe. And I don't think people really understand that, and not sharing your addresses with anyone. And people are so trusting. We love our family and our friends, and it can seem offensive not to share that information. Getting your kids not to disclose what school they go to, what sports clubs, sharing with their coaches and teachers and that these people can't pick them up, or we're in this situation just so that they have a bit of a view of who is around these kids and why are they around these kids. It's having those really good conversations, and with kids, if you are in a new place, having safety plans for your kids as well, and having things like that secret phone stashed and some money stashed and a spare car key and all those kinds of different things, really upskilling women. And I think the importance of lived experiences, that we speak from the heart, and we're like, you can't... for instance, that woman that I was talking to, that I intervened in a family violence situation, and she didn't actually want to leave her home because she had 3 dogs. And she was a bit embarrassed saying that, and I'm like, no, lots of women actually do that. Lots of people, not just women, men as well, don't want to leave the animals, and there's often been lots of threats against animals. So having those conversations about, well, actually there's an RSPCA program that can support you to do these things. So making it more so it is possible to keep safe, but if we don't have these challenging conversations and actually understand the realities, we're not going to be able to keep people safe. We'll be doing what is maybe easier, and hoping for the best, but this is high risk stuff. If you're having to relocate, you're at higher risk of homicide.
Okay, good question. We have another question over here, thanks. Thank you. Mic up nice and high. I'm going to start singing.
Hello. Thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge with us. I have a sort of a question about the men. I'm a victim was a victim of intimate partner violence, and I spent 32 years in the Witness Protection Program in Canada. And what I'm experiencing now is that I have 4 children, 2 daughters and 2 sons, that my daughters are very strong Indigenous women. It's my sons who are suffering. I don't think we spend enough focus on addressing how to help our sons, because both my sons are in intimate partner violence relationships at this time. And I don't think there's any programs or focus on how we can help them not become victims. And my concern is that the paradigm is going to shift. Yeah. And that we're going to end up with a lot more men that are experiencing violence, and the stigma that comes out of that might prevent them from disclosing. And I feel blessed that my sons trust me enough to share what's going on with them, and I'm able to do some interventions. And some of the interventions that I've used are culture. Yes. I know that in Canada, we've experienced some of the similar things that you've experienced along generational trauma. And I'm what's known as a 60 scoop, which is similar to your lost generation here. And I think it's imperative that we find a way to address what's happening with our men as well, because I believed I had raised my men to be kind young men, and they are. Almost to the point, like you were saying, how us being kind and loving women can be a detriment to us. Yes. It can be a detriment to our men as well. Yes. So my desire is to see more programs that address both of them, and we bring intimate partner violence against our men to the forefront as well, because I know how much it took for my sons to disclose what was going on to me, and now I'm at a quandary as to how do I support them in the community, right? And I know it takes a community to raise a child, and I know it also takes a community to combat domestic violence. And it's been through culture and ceremony that I've been able to survive and thrive. And I'd like to see more programs like that for our men as well, where their issues of violence against them is addressed as well.
Very good question.
Couldn't agree more.
Very good question.
Yeah, I think I did do an interview on Noongar radio once, and my son rang me up and said, "That was great, Mum, but I need support. It's not just about the women." And I don't often speak about our services absolutely need funding, refuges, better health services, all those kinds of things, but I want to stop the problem. And we need to be able to have respectful relationships. And I don't mean in the education department's respectful relationships kind of program thing. I mean that we need to talk about what that looks like, because I do wonder if that we're going to flip it and then have lots more deaths of men from family violence and hospitalisations and all those horrible outcomes that currently are overrepresented in the women. Men's programs, I think we kind of talk about in the space that they need to be done differently, but we're not doing that great at the moment. And like you say, I think culture is a massive strength, and we need to develop new programs and services that actually work much better with our men, and build our men up to be strong, healthy, loving people that they are destined to be, not as negatively impacted from the trauma, because just because they don't speak about it doesn't mean they're not negatively impacted by it. But that is a space that is changing. So in all the national plans and state plans, there is a focus on men and boys. I do hope it doesn't become a Western white model of how we help people, because we will fail. And again, I think Aboriginal people have a huge amount to offer in that space and how to work well with men.
Ken, do you know of any men's programs?
Used to be a lot of men's meetings, and I remember one where we strategised and even proposed funding for On Country, because On Country is healing. It's well over a decade ago now, and had a business case that went with it, and unfortunately the government didn't want to fund it, unfortunately at that time. We know in the wider community there are men's sheds, and there are a lot of families who are socialising and bringing men with them to be in balance and be in balance in the strength of being a man within families. There probably needs to be more and more work done in the concrete jungle and taking those people out on country who are reacting to the world in their resilience because of the oppression, the poverty that people find themselves in. So we know that trauma or residual or conflict that you may see or violence goes bang in your mind, and that unfortunately can remain, and if it's not debriefed or healed, then 9 times out of 10 there's a reaction at some stage in one's life, and it may be that jealousy or you're getting angry and you lash out at too many people who are close to you, and that's wrong. They're just reasons why we need to have obviously more men's work. Dan, you have a question? Thanks.
It's clear that the government's response is lacking, is incredibly disjointed. Testing. So it's clear that their government response is lacking, is not coordinated. This really needs a systems response, a whole of a systems response. So, environment, housing, justice, education, health. What is our role at Edith Cowan University within that system? What should we be doing, or what could we be doing more than we're doing to address this issue?
I think the siloed approach is so dysfunctional, and I constantly have conversations with people and they don't know how to collaborate. We talk about it in uni, but when I see it in workplaces, in particularly government, they're very much, oh no, that's someone else's business, that's not mine, and it's all passing the baton to someone else. But we actually need to work well together and call that out of going, okay, well, how can we do this? Because we're wasting resources too. That approach is a huge waste of resources. Working smarter, not harder. And I think actually teaching people how to do that. I think when I challenge the way things are being done, people do take it personally, or they do get annoyed and say it can't happen. You know, this is how it is being done. My mum would never let that go in my household, so it never sat well. But I think people need to actually learn how to have those conversations, because they're not hearing it, like you said before, it's deaf ears. Yeah. They're just getting offended, or they're just going, it's not my work area, I don't get paid for that, it's not in my JDF, or it's not in our area of work. So how we do that better, I think, actually needs to be taught.
It's core business though. It's core business whether you are a psychologist, whether you're an educator, even if you're in engineering, you actually need to know how to be and work alongside Aboriginal peoples, you know, communities, and the way we actually do things. So I think when you look at it like that, you know, there's an old adage, if you always do what you've always done, we're always going to get what we've always got. So to change that, we actually need to do things better.
Sadly, we've come to time. There's a need for us to vacate soon, because the uni's got a lecture coming in here soon. And but we must say that this has been expansive within our minds. It's been good for all of us who have been here to listen to both of you. It's been an absolute pleasure being the MC, actually, and it's been quite powerful, and no doubt that we're touched in certain ways, because we are human, and hearing things shared with us from the beginning to the end, or throughout this series, and within this theme. So it has been impacting, so we need to make sure that we look after each other, and it's okay to talk about it, for sure. And so just to finish off, Alison, your great-grandmother, was a leader in changing the scene, making changes in the rights of our people, and was actually responsible from Australia-wide, actually getting to a point where we would have a referendum, and so worked tirelessly from an Aboriginal woman here in this state, with other people around Australia, and there were non-Aboriginal people involved in that, and obviously the result was a big yes. This is interesting, isn't it? And so, and you're following in those footsteps, and your grandmother, Judy Jackson, was a warrior, and also followed in the footsteps of her mother, and so you're doing the same, and so yeah, we've benefited from you being here, so thank you very much. And Libby, your colleagues at this university reveres you even more, so thank you.